Hi, George. Thank you for joining this call. I saw you were posting something in the Discord community in the appreciation channel, and you described a part of your workflow. So I thought, why not reach out to you and ask for a kind of interview where you can show the other users how your workflow NotePlan looks like. Also, because
Mhm.
some other users on Discord pushed me a bit to record this kind of interviews. So I thought, why not ask George? And yeah, thanks for joining this call.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I really appreciate the work that you and all the plugin developers do on the product. So I'm happy to give back a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. Then let's jump right in and let's see how your workflow looks like.
Okay. So let me start with just kind of some background. I'm a chief marketing officer at a software company based in the US. We're in the high-end data center infrastructure space. Small company. I have a team, but it's a small team. And so I do a lot of sort of management stuff, and I also do a lot of worker stuff, so content creation, things like that, which frankly is the part of the job that I really like to do. And so NotePlan really is the core of my process. Everything I do starts there. In many cases, ends there, unless it needs to go to something else. But so it's really the sort of the center point of everything, and I think that's really frankly the purpose. Is what drives me crazy is to know that I've written something or sent an email or did that or the other thing, and then I can't find it. And the ability of NotePlan to search and organize things has really made a big difference, and frankly made me much more productive. So let me pull it up here real quick. All right, so I use Stage Manager. At the core is what I really use it mostly for is to kind of organize all the windows that are popping around usually in my life. But one of the other things I use in the latest version of the OS is the Mac widgets. And primarily I use it for, as you can see here on the screen, is to organize a series of shortcuts. It
Mhm.
kind of replaces like a Stream Deck or anything else. And I just size all my windows so this bottom row is always visible.
Mhm.
And you can
Mhm.
see here that all of these widgets are triggering something to happen within NotePlan, right? So
Mhm.
this first four is probably my most used. It's so if I'm in another app and something comes up, I need to get to, I want to just pop an idea in or set up a task or log a call. I borrowed all those from the community, at least most of it. And then this group here is more for like when I'm working within a note, things like that. So, anyways, those will disappear once I flip over to NotePlan, which I'll
Mhm.
do now. So at the core of my day is really the today screen. I don't use the today screen for much than just throwing in a couple of. It's almost like an inbox for me to capture tasks that they're just coming up, or oh man, I got to
Mhm.
do that sort of thing. If I have a thought or an idea, I usually capture that in that one of my shortcuts here. If I click on, it's called the idea button, and I just, whatever it
Mhm.
is, I try to just log everything. I kind of, again, thing drives me
Mhm.
crazy. I have a great idea and I'm finishing up another thought and I go back to it, and all I can remember is I had a great idea, but I can't remember what it was. That drives me
Mhm.
crazy. So I just pop it in. And then from there, I've got these. This is sort of I pulled a template for each day. It automatically
Mhm.
puts the triggers to update the dashboard, which
Mhm.
we'll show in a second. I use
Mhm.
John's habits tracker, so it loads in all my
Mhm.
basic stuff that I want to track. This has not been an impressive week for me, so maybe we should have done it in the summertime because with the holidays and everything. I had a little bit of cold earlier, so my
Mhm.
numbers aren't as good as they usually are. And then, like I said, I just kind of log what's going on that day.
Mhm.
But when I start most days, what I'll do is I have a save window set that I call
Mhm.
planning. So I use again John's window setup, and I have
Mhm.
this one right here called Studio Planning. So I have in my office, I have a Mac Studio with a 27-inch Mac
Mhm.
Apple Studio display. And as we were talking earlier, it's not because I do high-end graphics, is that I'm
Mhm.
very spoiled by high quality text displays that's on the Retina laptops, and so I wanted something like that. So, anyways, if I hit this,
Yeah.
it'll open up the John's dashboard plugin, and also the review plugin. And I'll typically do this every morning. To be honest with you, it's not normally this bad as far as full of things to do, again, because of the week, but I figured it'd be good to do that. You can also see that I've done some theme customization here to meet my tastes. So these are the yellow is a prioritized task, things like that. And I'm using John's toothpaste plugin with some heavy modifications to fit my needs, but that was kind of my starting point. And then what I'll do each morning is I'll just kind of go through and look and say, okay, yeah, 9 things to do. Well, this was the one we just added, so I can kind of complete that. But I'll go through and say, oh, I got to get this ad done. So I'll come in here, and John's added a prioritization button. So I can prioritize that. You can see it kind of changes pretty quickly. That's actually the thing I got to do right after this call. And then I can kind of look at these other things and say, okay, do all of these really have to get done? And unfortunately, yeah, they do actually.
And they are coming from various project nodes.
Correct. Yeah. So what I like about the dashboard plugin is it shows me which project or project note it's coming from, so I don't have to type that in the description. And so like this one, so I've got a note that's creatively called my global list, and that's just sort of my dumping ground where everything goes. And so then so like this one, I don't really need to worry about that today. So I'll schedule it for the next business day. And so boom, it pops out of the way and it's ready to go. The rest of these I do kind of have to do, but they're not super priority, so I'll just leave them alone. Again, the other thing I like, sorry, go ahead.
So you just reschedule them to later days.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like the bullet journal method. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll do is, so there's many times where I have to go into a task because the problem with task management in my mind is there's sort of a halo effect, right? If you schedule one thing, if you move a date out on one thing, you're probably affecting other things. And so I want to go in and look at different things. So there are times where I'll do that. Like this one I've actually completed this morning, and I just didn't check it off. So there's another one gone. And so then those are all in there. And then here's 2 that are overdue that I missed. And so, and this was just one of those, you can see it's in the global list, that this was one of those random ideas that I had. So this one I don't really need to mess with today, tomorrow, or anything. So I'm going to actually push that out a week. And so that's that week button there. And then that's gone. And then this one actually got done, but this is an example of something where I know there's other tasks in there, and I probably need to get those scheduled now. So I can click there, and you can see over here on the project screen that I've got that task there. And now I want to, sort of enable, if you will, this task. So instead of scheduling everything and constantly have to reschedule everything, I basically only schedule either a task that must be done by a certain date or something that's immediately actionable. Everything else just saves in it's a task, but it's just not checked. And so this one is another one that I want to get done today. I don't use the today audit repeat until completed option. I actually want it to go in, because then it won't go into that overdue box. And I actually want that to happen because it forces me to reevaluate that particular task and say to myself, okay, I didn't do it yesterday. What magic is going to happen today that'll make me do it today? Does it really need to be done today? And then we'll get to it in a second, but I use the this week notes, which was a great addition, by the way, yes, I use the weekly notes as sort of my, this is stuff I'd really like to get done this week, but I don't have to get it done this week, but it's sort of a goal, right? And so this one, I do need to get done. I do need to get it done today. So I put that in, and I'll actually prioritize that one as well.
Is this like a prioritized list? Like you go from top to bottom and update it in between, or?
It's a flow. So I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do that. And I've been doing this for 15 years. You would think I wouldn't forget stuff, but I've learned that I do. So, I don't mess with it. Now, what I use this, by the way, is you're going to be have a big head by the time we're done with this interview, Edward. But this was such a huge add, the ability to have the time block automatically add to a calendar. And I don't think I use it as most people do, where they're time blocking and being very organized. Unfortunately, my day is not like that. What I use it for is, so I'm responsible to share a marketing calendar with my executive team, right? And it annoyed me because it was a separate process. I had everything in NotePlan, and I had to kind of manually make sure everything was in sync. Well, now, because of what you just did, I can add it, and in the settings, I have it go to a shared marketing calendar, our shared Google marketing calendar, and now it's automatically updated for my team, right? So I mean, it sounds silly, but that one thing probably saves me, number one, to make sure it's actually accurate, which is kind of a big deal, and number two, it saves me 30-40 minutes a day, right? So
just to elaborate briefly, if it's not visible in the screen recording later, this is like a time blocked task, but it's not used as a time block, more like a shared calendar where you share this as a kind of deadline, I think.
Exactly.
For the marketing calendar. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And so then so you can see those in there. So and I use it for those specific situations where you can see here, there's, we're publishing the thing, posting it on LinkedIn, all those sort of different things. And you'll see here, I've got two flavors of projects. One I call campaigns, which are multi-level. You can see I use the shaded headers that came out a couple months ago, I guess now. And each of these relate to this particular, in this case, this particular case study. So they all have responsibility. In a minute, I'll show you how I handle, one-off stuff. Like every so often, I just want to write a blog, and it doesn't necessarily tie to a particular campaign. So I still track those as projects. But most of my stuff is there's sort of these detailed looks. And I had mentioned that I use the statistics plugin, and what I do with that is, and we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but I guess that's okay, is as part of my project review process at the end of the week, I'll just pull it up here.
Yeah, this part of the statistics plugin. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll do the task stats for the current note, and then I'll just paste that in there. And then
I see. Yeah.
And honestly, all I really care about is these.
Okay, you select an option and this copies it to the clipboard. That's how you pasted it there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay. And then one point about the headings. So this is a custom theme which is also available in the community, built by a few users. I think Stacy built it once. I don't know if other users were also included into this. But yeah, this is how the line goes through till the end.
Yeah, exactly. So I can delete this one thing and it becomes a little bit more visible. So for me, equal one, is that sort of, I don't know what color you'd call that, but whatever that color is, it does that. And I just kind of randomly pick colors until I find one I like. And then if I go back to today, for the done area, I just make it gray. So that's, as you can see there, that's 4. And those are really the only 2 I use. I don't want to overwhelm myself with a bunch of different colors. So anyways, so I'll go through my this week list, make sure that stuff in there is still realistic for this week. Obviously, we're recording on a Friday, so a lot of this stuff will probably end up getting pushed, unless I have an incredibly productive 2 days. A lot of this stuff will end up getting pushed. And then I get into the overdue task. And again, in my defense, it's not usually this bad. There's usually a few in here, but you can, in John's plugin, you can set how many overdue tasks it'll pull at a time. I have it set for 20. I haven't seen any performance issues with that. Again, I like, Apple likes me a lot, and I spend a lot of money on Apple products. And so I don't know if that's because I have, an M3 or what, but I have no issues with the performance. And then I can go through here, and I won't do it just to save time on the video, but I can go through and say, well, I got to get that done today. And so that'll pop that back up to that section. And then I can just keep going through those and rescheduling them as you need. You'll also kind of notice that I use emoticons just to give me some visual. Like I use the little roadblock emoticon to let me know that that's a waiting task. So I kind of use that instead of tags. I had mentioned earlier that the
Mhm.
one feature I thought I would use like crazy that I don't use very often, ironically, is tagging. And honestly, that's because the search is so fast that I don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
And then the other nice thing about the dashboard plugin is that it will also show projects that need to be reviewed. Typically, my goal when I get done with this review process, and I haven't been like 3 days past due, is to have no overdue tasks, only a handful of this week tasks, and then again maybe 5 or 6 today tasks,
Mhm.
depending on how long they take. I don't time block because my day is a series of interruptions. I don't get the luxury of being able to block out time. If somebody needs me on a call with a customer, I got to go. So I gotten really good at working in fragments, and and again, that's another area where NotePlan works really well because the way the search bar works as a default, it kind of shows you where you were recently, and so I can quickly pop up and jump back to the note or whatever that I was working on last. And so I actually kind of use this default view in the command bar as sort of like, okay,
Mhm.
where was I? And then I can, oh yeah, I was working on that, and then I'm off to the races. So and then once I'm done with that section, I take a quick review of the review list. And so you see here, I've only got really 3 that I got to pay attention to. These 2 are overdue. These 2, this guy is past due, and this one's ready. These 2 are ready for review. You can see that again, we're recording on a Friday. Most of these are going to hit tomorrow, which is my typical
Mhm.
day that I'll go through the review process. And then again, John's done a really good job with this particular plugin, but so I can, and usually I will visit each of these to make sure they're up to date, and I've got all the information on them and things like that. So if I click here, that'll show up over here. I did want to show this one. So here's an area where I do use tagging, so to kind of tag where we are. So one of my responsibilities is to create demand, right? So leads and things like that. And so I try to track the front end of that process. And so I have all that recorded in here. And then I can, I've got different schedules set up and things like that. The other thing I wanted to show is we use Salesforce.com, which frankly I don't like a lot because it's really, really slow, but it is what it is. I got to use it. So I put the link to this particular person in Salesforce. And then I do, the ultimate integration to me is cut and paste. And so I will copy paste information back and forth when I need to, but I can pop that up here and it pops me right to that guy's, relatively quickly to that guy's contact record, and I can
Mhm.
see what's going on there. So it gives me some flexibility from
Mhm.
that perspective. But anyways, everything's here. What I'm typically looking for when I'm doing project reviews is, do I have a bunch of tasks that don't have dates that should? Do I have anything overdue? Do I need to update anything? And the good news here is everything's in pretty good shape, so
Mhm.
I can come back over to the review list, do finish a next review, and then I can go to this guy. The 2 that I
Mhm.
happen to be are demand gen related stuff, but same thing here. But so here's one I would have missed, right? So here's one where
Mhm.
I don't have a scheduled task, and so this is where that review process saves me.
Interesting. It's like a similar like a CRM or like follow
Mhm.
up with other persons kind of project
Yeah,
note. Yeah,
yeah.
interesting use
It's
case.
for me, it's a usable version of Salesforce, and I don't track my tasks. It does make sense to me to have tasks in Salesforce and tasks in NotePlan. I got enough stuff to worry about, so all my tasks actually go here, and then I push them over to anything that's like a note or a result, I push into Salesforce. Unfortunately, kind of manually. I don't have time to mess around with the API set and all that kind of stuff. Their API set, and go from there. So that's an example though of where the review process, and it happens, unfortunately, kind of frequently, where the review process saves me. So then I just, same thing here. I just hit finish the next review, and there is a little bit of a glitch sometimes where it does that. I just have to
Mhm.
refresh. And then So at this point, I'm all caught up except for this one guy that's past due, and he's just not. He's not going to be done for a while, so I'm going to change this. That, and I can just refresh that. And now he's gone. Right? So that takes care of everything from there. And so at that point, I'm ready to start my day. And as I said in the thread, usually what I'm doing is I'm either jumping into a call with a potential customer, or I've got some free time and I'm going to write a blog, something of that nature, maybe plan out a project, things like that. So as an example, I've got a blog that I need to, well, this is more of a want to, that I want to write. And it just got dumped into the global list here. And so what I'll do is come over here and use the templates. And I've got one for that complete laid out campaign that I was showing you earlier. But if I just need to do a blog, I just pull up the blog template. And the name of this one is and then it's ready to go. And so at that point, I just date it.
So if this was a bit difficult to see, we just added a title. So the template prompted you to write a title and then select a folder as the destination, basically. This is something which you can add to a template, kind of like a command to prompt you and also ask you for, basically the command bar folder selection is also like a kind of prompt.
Yeah, exactly. So here, let me pull up that exact template. So it basically gives me the basics that I need for the project review plugin. It puts specific dates in there and things like that. It puts in the URL to the note stat, so I don't have to remember to do the Command J thing, and then it puts the basic stuff in there. And then at that point, and I've got one of these that covers an entire campaign. Of course, that's gonna be hard to find because everything has the word project in it. And then I've got one for each individual component that I might do as a one-off. And so I just flip back and forth between those, and I'm ready to go. So at this point, I'll probably work on that tomorrow. And so I just date it, and obviously it'll show up on tomorrow's list. So my next feature request for John is I want a section here that'll say tomorrow, so I can do that. But I've been pushing pretty hard lately, so I'm trying to be gentle. So
it's an interesting use case for templates. I've used them mostly for daily templates like time blocking and so on, questions. But I see you use them more for flow or like an order of tasks for a specific project, or even like a blog post, what to do first and next and so on.
Exactly. And then, so let me get rid of these two real quick. It'd probably be wouldn't be exciting video if you recorded me typing. So I'll just show you kind of the end result of that. And so what I do is I'm halfway in on the para model, where you have project areas, resources, etc. The projects area is pretty well built out. So you can see here, does the sidebar get bigger as if I do no, it's just the front text, isn't it?
No.
So here I've got a folder for each project, and then within the project I'll have within the project folder I'll have the project, the thing that holds all the tasks itself. I represent that with a gear icon, and to me it feels kind of silly, but I do try to put an emoticon when I'm thinking about it, because then I can immediately tell that this was a press release, because it's a little newspaper emoticon. If it's a globe sort of thing, it's either a web page or a registration page, something to do with our website, content that's going to go on the website, with the exception of a blog. If it's One of my responsibilities is to help the sales guys have emails that they can send to people. So we'll do email templating. Interestingly enough, our email, the thing that actually sends email, can only take HTML. So, but we've got that plugin from I forgot who it is that does a conversion to HTML from Markdown. So I'll use that all the time.
Okay.
And then here's an example of a blog. I believe in long content blogs. I think it helps with search and stuff like that. So if I do the word count on this, which is something I do all the time. So this is a 1,400 word blog. And what's beautiful about this is we use WordPress for our backend. And so I can literally just cut and paste this, drop it into a new post on the WordPress platform, and everything's formatted perfect, ready to go. Right. So I can get all my work done here. I use I don't know if you can see it real well, but I use the Grammarly
Yeah.
plugin to kind of double check grammar as I go. That little bubble's always in my way though. And you know, you can see I've got embedded links in here. The only thing I don't put it in is images, and only because I've got to drop those in separately anyways. So
Yeah.
I usually will leave those out just to kind of save on space and things like that. But that's how that works. And so this was a a relatively long blog, and again, I just cut and pasted it in, and it formats perfectly under WordPress, and I'm ready to publish.
Interesting. Are you using the emojis or emoticons like in a structured way? Like, is it just random, or you choose like every time it's a blog post, you choose this emoji or a similar one?
Yes, yeah, I keep
Okay.
it very consistent. So I use the
Okay.
this will get bigger. So I use the I don't know what that is, but I use that as
Mm.
the blog post one. I use a little email one for the emails. I use a globe for anything that's going on the website that's not a blog. I use this one for press releases, and the gear icon is for my projects. And so that way I can, when I open this folder up, I can quickly scan down and say, okay, there's an email one, there's a blog, etc.
Yeah, it's interesting use case. I use them. I use also a lot of emojis, but they're more random than like structured in your case. I think I should also adopt this way for the type of
uh,
notes. Yeah.
yeah. And then, and I had mentioned, I probably am not going to show this on a Zoom call, but I do use, when I say I use NotePlan for everything, I literally mean everything, right? And so I do all my budgeting in NotePlan. I use the math plugin for that. I find it works really, really well. It'd probably be just as easy to do it in a spreadsheet, but then I don't have all my data in one place. And to me, this is all about getting all the data in one place. That's why you'll never hear me comment on reminders integration or anything like that, because I don't use that, right? I want everything in one place. And so that's how all that goes. And of course, I've got for the areas, I use a little jar icon because I guess I wasn't feeling overly creative. I just, what this is for me, and I think this is the right definition. It's they're kind of like projects that don't either never have an expiration date, like I'm always working on improving the website, things like that, or it's sort of random thoughts. I do still keep a separate notes folder, and this is like again just random thoughts, an opening paragraph to a blog that I might want to come back to someday, things like that. And then reference material, I try to keep pretty strict as to specifically that's what it is, right? It's something that probably won't change very often, but it's a piece of information that I use over and over again. So like an example is our kind of about text that always gets dropped at the bottom of a press release and things like that, right? I can just pull that up real quick and grab it.
No, I have also something like this for like the business address and these kind of things, which I can't remember somehow, but I always copy it from there, from this kind of
Yeah,
reference note.
yeah, exactly. And so I do that, and then the other thing I do is as I collaborate with my team, one of the things on my list this year is to buy a couple more licenses for them, so they can kind of get into this, and also we can kind of collaborate on notes. I know that's still in the lab section, but I do use the publish thing quite a bit. So for example, I was putting together our Q1 marketing plan. This is sort of our plan, and I shared it with the leadership team. And I really didn't want them editing it or making comments or anything like that. And I also wanted to make changes on the fly and know I have a single copy. And so I did the publish note.
Yeah.
And so if I pull that up in like Safari,
Yeah.
right, again, formats perfectly. They have all the information they need right there. And with executive leadership, I always have to do like really short summaries at the top because some of the guys are, just give me the facts, and other guys want all the details. So all that's structured in that way. But it allows me to kind of control the content. Version tracking is always a big challenge, no matter what you do, and so it allows me to kind of manage that process as well.
Mm. I have one quick comment about the sharing of other users. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one of the goals of the web version because not everybody has a Mac. There we are building out also team spaces. We start there and then move the team spaces also to the native version. So people who work on without Apple accounts on the web version can collaborate with the people in the native versions and so on. So this is the overarching goal of this.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, we'll be looking forward to that. And then I use the calendar integration. I'm using more. Sometimes I just forget it's there, but now I'm using it a lot more, and so I'll drag the calendar into some notes, so I've got some linking there and things like that. But that's sort of the fast version of it. Like I said, I live in it all day. I use it all the time, and the other thing I should show as well doesn't probably. Uh,
Of the calendar integration, you mean the syncing between the time blocks and the calendar?
no, just the fact that the calendar shows up on the screen all the time, right? That it's always there
Ah,
for me.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, this
Um,
general. Okay, the sidebar.
yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing, like I said, I mentioned a couple times, I use this to compose
Mhm.
emails, right? And so any email that's more than, yeah, that's a good idea, or no, I will generally type up here and then use I don't remember when you
Mm.
did this, but this was awesome. I do that all the time. And that way, and if I'm feeling particularly organized, I'll even drag a link back. So I have a link to where the email went, but that doesn't always happen. But this again, because I can't tell you how many times I've sent an email and somebody says, "Hey, did you do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I sent you an email about it," and I can pop it up, and I'm ready to go. Right. So, and there's times where like you'll email an idea, and as you're kind of trying to explain something to somebody, you're like, that's actually a good idea. And so the fact that I can, within that context, put a task right into that email to me to remind me to kind of flesh that out some more and not have to go, somewhere else. I take advantage of that all the time. So I'll drop
Mhm.
tasks like in that marketing plan that I was showing you earlier. There's tasks embedded in that as I was typing it out, I'm like, oh, I got to do that, and so instead of jumping somewhere else and recording it, I just embed it right into the content, right? And then now, when I share it, I got to kind of I got to get rid of that. Be cool, by the way,
Mhm.
if there was a way to have something, maybe in the Teams area, where
Mhm.
there was a way to have a task that was hidden to only to the user that created that task. Something There's a feature for you.
Mm.
I knew I'd come up with something.
Interesting idea, yeah.
I think the only thing I would say, kind of in conclusion, is if you're new and you're watching this, don't think you got to download every plugin and figure them all out day one, right? What
Yeah.
I did was, and I have the advantage that I've been a user for a fairly good chunk of time. I think even before plugins were a thing, if I recall. So I had an advantage, but just start in the daily note uh, thing and start typing stuff and just build it slowly. And as you have needs, jump over in Discord, and one of us can kind of give you some advice on where to go. That's my only fear, is the product is so powerful for a new user,
Mhm.
it could also be overwhelming. And to me, just start at the daily page, drop some notes in there, drop some tasks in there, and then just start going from there. And over the course of time, you'll get it, and you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, it goes quite deep. Yeah, the light version of this is using just the references. If you attach dates to tasks, you see them,
Yeah,
of course, there. But I see you use the dashboard as a more
yeah,
complex version of this. And also
yeah,
the week tab is at the top where you can review your weekly tasks and so on. So this
yeah,
would be like
yeah.
the
They're all.
simple version of this. Where
Yeah,
of course, if you're a heavier user of projects and so on, the dashboard has a better overview of everything. And
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, this is the first product that I can't keep up with. You and the plugin guys develop stuff so fast. I have to be careful what I ask for because like a day later I get it. So I have to really think about it before I even make a side comment about it. But I'll never get the math plugin. I was like, man, it would be really cool if it could do math. And like 3 days later, David had the math plugin. I'm like, okay, I got to be careful here. So, but yeah, so for me, that's sort of how I use it. I think that it's really valuable. It's an easy renewal every year for me because my whole world kind of runs around this particular product.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for going into almost a deep dive into how you use the different tools which come along
Sure.
as plugins and how you're using NotePlan. It was really interesting. And I hope it's very valuable for the community to see how the plugins are utilized, even if it goes a bit deep, but still very interesting to see this.